This machine is known as the Radial Arm Saw. The reason it gets its name Radial Arm Saw is because this big part on the very top here that's colored gray is a giant rail, or like an arm that sticks out, and then there's little gliders or rollers underneath that hold and let the saw blade and the motor attached glide forward and backwards. So the way you operate it is you pull it forward and backwards, and you can also adjust the angle and the tilt as well for this machine, but we don't touch those adjustments. A few things to be familiar with for this machine. One, I want you to be aware, and this is a safety rule, be aware of where the safe zones are. There's two safe zones on this machine. One is over here in this green area. That's where you put your left hand to secure your piece of wood. And the other safe zone is the handle. So you want to have your wood secured inside this green area, nowhere outside of it, as well as one hand on the handle at all times securing it, even when you're cutting. The next safety rule is absolutely no rip cuts on this machine. A rip cut, just as a quick review, is going in line with the wood grain. So let's say my finger is the saw blade. The saw blade will be traveling with or in the direction of the wood grain. So no rip cuts. That's another safety rule. This machine only does what's called cross cuts, which goes along this way. The reason why we don't do a rip cut is because since the blade is traveling in the same direction as the wood grain is flowing, it's too aggressive. It will notch into the wood itself, and it will kind of jump out of control, and you will lose total control of it altogether. Another safety rule is to always keep, and it's listed right here, your wood against the fence at all times. So the wood should always be placed against the fence, because the blade, it rotates in a clockwise direction this way, and if the blade notches into the wood, it will keep it and hold against the fence. But if it's out here, the blade will notch into it and slam it against the fence, and you will either lose control, your hand will go in a place it doesn't want to go, or something worse. So always keep the wood against the fence, as well as flat on the table. The next safety rule is to line the blade up before turning it on and using it. What I mean by that is, the blade, you should already have a measurement that you marked out where you want to cut. And one thing to keep in mind is that blade has a certain thickness to it. It's an eighth of an inch thick. So the blade, you want it to stay on the scrap side. So if the blade's going to be cutting, it doesn't cut away any of the wood that we want to keep and make our board too short. So when we line the blade up, we do this when the machine's off, by the way. We pull the blade towards us, and we want it so it's touching the wood just barely. So if you take a look at it, the edge of the blade is literally right on the edge of the line, that's exactly what we want. It's on the side of scrap that we don't want, and it's not on the side that we want to keep. So that is perfectly lined up. Once our wood is lined up, take the blade, push it the whole way towards the back. Your left hand will be securing the wood and holding it still. Make sure you don't have any hands or anything that's outside the grain box, the safe zone on the table. And your right hand will go on the grip. The switch to turn it on is right here. You flip that in the upwards position, and you pull towards you at a slight, slow, even pace. It's also a good idea to keep in mind that this machine generates a lot of sawdust, which is usually caught in some kind of chute or an area like this. It goes backwards. So it's a good idea to turn the vacuum system on. So that's another safety rule. Make sure the vacuum system is turned on. And usually it's going to be a switch somewhere located on the outside wall. Now, while the machine is slowing down, take your piece of wood, carefully remove it. Never reach in there and try to grab anything, because the blade, it's still moving. It will touch your hand and possibly hurt you. If you have a scrap piece of wood, take another big piece of wood, or yours, and gently tap the scrap piece out of the way. And through the scrap piece, usually there's going to be a bucket somewhere close to or underneath of the machine itself. And wait for that blade to stop completely before making any other adjustments or cutting anything else, or walking away. The last safety rule is, make sure that before you walk away, you let the machine slow down, because if we turn it on and turn it off, it continues to spin for a few seconds. We never want to jam anything in there to slow it down. Let it slow down by itself. And then once it slows down and it stops completely, to the point where you can count those teeth one by one, then you may walk away from it.